Hello and welcome into today's edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider Podcast. My name is Kevin Hicks and I'm the lead beat writer for Arizona State Sun Devils on SI. And I'm so grateful to be joining you all once again today. We are now just 50 days out, 51 days out as of today from kickoff for the 2025 Arizona State football season. The Sun Devils would start play obviously on August 30th against Northern Arizona. No, we are 50 days away. Yeah, that's crazy. Um, so exciting. Arizona State is likely going into the season as a preseason top 15 team in the AP poll. They would have been the favorite in the Big 12 conference preseason poll if it was carried out this year, just by virtue of having five all Big 12 preseason team members in the poll as well. That's a great indicator of what the results would have been this year. But it's probably for the best, honestly, because last year they were picked to finish 16th. They ended up winning the league, and I personally believe that negatively impacted the perception of the Big 12 from a national standpoint. People looked at the Big 12 and were questioning why teams like Arizona State and Brigham Young and Colorado were near the top of the conference despite being picked at or near the bottom. And that can really do a number. That's just what it is. And I think that was a wise decision to do away with the poll. But there's still going to be people that want to make a conversation out of that regardless. And On3 did a preseason straw poll amongst Big 12 coaches predicting who the champion and who the runner up will be. The coaches weren't able to vote for their own teams, but the results were very, very interesting. So the most votes received as for runner up and champion were Kansas State and Iowa State. So Kansas State was voted 8 times to be either the champion or the runner up. That's half of the Big 12 coaches that voted Kansas State. 6 of them voted them to win the championship. 2 of them voted them to be the runner up. Iowa State, all 7 coaches that voted for Iowa State said that they would be the runner up and not the champion of the conference, which would be interesting because obviously last season Arizona State dominated them 45-19 in the championship game. Then Arizona State is number 3. They got 6 votes just behind Iowa State, but much like Kansas State, the majority of voters believed that they would win the Big 12 championship if they were to get there. 4 coaches voted them to win the Big 12 championship. 2 coaches voted them to be runners up. Um, let's talk about this for a second. So, Arizona State does have some challenges that surround the team in 2025. They might not be too glaring or too conspicuous, but they still are there. Last year, one of the weaknesses of the team was the pass rush. Prince Dorba led this team with 6 sacks in 2023. Struggled with injuries through much of 2024. He did play in 7 games, but he was obviously limited physically. Elijah O'Neal and Clayton Smith combined for 9 sacks last season, and then you get CJ Fight, Zach Swanson. You have a pretty solid defensive line rotation. Let's see if Brian Ward can get the most out of that group rotationally. Let's see if the opposing quarterbacks are thrown a little more out of rhythm than they were last year. Because we know Brian Ward, phenomenal at creating turnovers, but the pressure just wasn't there on a consistent basis. And this year, that might end up hurting them if you wanted to point out a concern. Because if you look at the schedule, they play Sawyer Robertson, they play Josh Hoover, they play Devin Dampier, and they play Bayron Morton in 4 straight games. Dampier isn't the strongest passer as of right now, but he's a dynamic playmaker. He's tough to bring down. Phenomenal play extender. That's going to be a challenge. And then the other 3 are 3 of the most seasoned gunslingers in the Big 12. And then late in the season, you get Rocco Becht, you get Noah Fafita, you get Caden Salter or Julian Lewis. So it's going to be a lot more challenging when it comes to opposing quarterbacks that they play, and the schedule as a whole is probably going to be tougher. There's a chance that they play more like 4 or 5 top 25 caliber teams compared to 2 or 3 last season in the regular season. We'll see how it shakes out, but they do absolutely have the tools to succeed this season. There's little doubt about that. It's been hammered down time and time again. 17 returning starters, every single position coach and coordinator returns. Kenny Dillingham is probably the best coach in the Big 12. If not, he's definitely top 3. The defense is as talented as we've seen in Tempe in years, maybe even a decade plus. This team is as deep, talented, and balanced as it's been since maybe even the 1996 team, going back 30 years. There is a lot to like about Arizona State in 2025. There are a few roadblocks, like I said, but it feels like they're being underestimated even in this. Iowa State being picked as a representative in the Big 12 title game is a little questionable. I'm not going to question the judgment of these coaches, but it feels like it might be a little bit of Arizona State fatigue coming into play here. Yeah, let's talk about the teams that are below Arizona State. So 7 of the 16 teams in the Big 12 received representation in this poll. Texas Tech was right behind Arizona State with 5 votes. 3 voted them to be champions, 2 voted to be runners-up. TCU got 3 votes, 2 champion votes, and 1 runner-up vote. Baylor got 2, 1 champion, 1 runner-up vote, and then Utah got 1 vote, which was a runner-up. So these are largely the 7 teams that are considered to be legitimate contenders to win the Big 12, I believe, and that's personally my take as well. I would have had BYU in this tier before the Jake Retzloff saga, the whatever happened there. Yeah, I will say though, if I were to make a prediction right now, I feel pretty confident in saying that 2 out of the 3 of Arizona State, Texas Tech, and Baylor will be the representatives in the Big 12 title game this year. I believe those are the 3 most complete teams going into the season, possibly Kansas State as well in there. I believe Baylor and Texas Tech might not be the most well-coached teams, because you look at Kyle Whittingham, you look at Matt Campbell, you look at even Sonny Dykes, and those guys probably are on a different level right now. But Baylor has Sawyer Robertson. Texas Tech has a phenomenal roster all around on paper, and their schedule will shake out more favorably, I believe. But watch out for TCU. Josh Hoover, the defense could take a step forward once again. Sonny Dykes bounced back from a rough 5-7 2023 season last year, 9-win season. Watch out for TCU in this too, but as I said, I believe Arizona State, Baylor, and Texas Tech are in a tier of their own as of right now. That could obviously change. Kansas State could very well win the Big 12. I just believe that we need to see more out of Avery Johnson personally before we start to crown them as a real threat to be a CFP team. All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in today once again. Your support means the world to me. Please follow me on X/Twitter if you get the opportunity to do so. And I will see you tomorrow.